Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you were, return to what you are, return to where you were born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you were born and reborn again. Ooh.
The first mitzvah in the Torah is, let there be light. So we are commanded, in everything you do, be a menorah, a bringer of light. Live with honor, act with integrity, do your work with passion, and the radiance of your deeds will live after you. May our ideals burn bright, forever unextinguished, and may we live our lives like the flames we kindle, always stretching upwards, striving for the good, reaching for you. Thank you. Shabbat ba, Shabbat ba. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'ki'imanu v'higianu, lazman hazeh.
Amen v'amen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hakafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol olam, v'romim banu mikol lashon, v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav. V'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava yom ha'shabbat hazeh v'yom ha'zikaron hazeh yom teruah mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta, vanu v'charta, ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, u'devarcha emet, ve'kayam la'ad. Baruch atah Adonai, melech el kol haaretz, megarish haShabbat v'Yisrael, v'yom hazikaron. L'chaim. If you've chosen to rise, you may be seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושננתם לבניך, ודיברת בעם, בשבתך ובביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Israel, Hashabbat. השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, לעולם. בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, לדורותם ברית עולם.
Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi agita hilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagipor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Omer Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, Umevii Geula livnei v'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava. Zochrenu l'chaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
שלום רב על ישראל
following names for the Misha berach were received by Emanuel congregation before September 16th, 2020. Please share additional names in the chat. Laura Keena Aronson, Barbara Berman, Harvey Baller, David Burchett, John Cameron, Figa Sora Bachaya, Carol Cohen, Linda Danielson, Francine Fields, Eslyn Garb, Royce Gardner, Sandra Gagios, Carter Glass, Don Grandolfo, Mimi Harris, Werner Hyman,
Jane Heron, Priscilla Hill, Harold Katz, Molly Klee, Anne Marie Kuleza, Robert Langfelder, Louise Leigel, Roy Lloyd, Gerald Marks, Stephen Melnick, Lauren Meserve, Deborah Miller, Jimmy Miller, Nikki Moulton, Moshe Ben-Chava Vanatan, Jordan Narenberg,
Nicole Newcomb, Larry O'Neill, Don Olson, Mark Perlman, Rodney Qualls, Alan Sager, Kristen Rau Skinner, Maria Sklyanskaya, Linda Stahl, Tali Stein, Michael Van Buren, Francie Volinsky, Virginia Wharton, Nachum Feivel Ben Gedalia Umasha. We hold these people, those named in the chat and the unnamed in our communities, in our hearts, as we sing the Misha berach together, as led by Jeff, Spencer, and Sammy Tweedy.
Misha berach avotenu lekor havracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha berach imotenu lekor havracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shana Tova. How will we look back on this strange, strange moment in history? What will we remember about our experiences? How will we make it all matter? What will we gather from our pain and suffering? What will we learn from our opportunities? How will our knowledge ultimately propel us forward to a better life and a more enduring community? What responsibilities do we have to those who will come after us? For starters, here's one way to look at things. With apologies, of course, to Charles Dickens for this twist of phrase. It was the worst of times, it was the best of times. It was the age of foolishness, it was the age of wisdom. It was the epoch of incredulity, it was the epoch of belief. It was the season of darkness, it was the season of light. It was the winter of despair, it was the spring of hope. Indeed, life has been quite the tale of two cities, or worlds, or realities, however you wish to put it. Or perhaps, depending on your unique encounter, an even more complex description calls. But however we describe it, this pandemic has fractured our lives and desolated our city, our nation, and the world around us. chaos and death, loneliness and dislocation, stress, setbacks, a sense of breathlessness and being boxed in. What hasn't COVID-19 caused? Oh, what a tale our collective thoughts and feelings could tell. And if the reality I paint hasn't been quite as stark for you, I'm grateful. But surely it has been as dark for someone we know, and many upon many we don't. Of course, in true Dickensian fashion, it is also true that our story is incomplete without certain powerful and successful affirmations of life, like resilience and heroism, like creativity and experimentation, like personal redefinition and moral reckoning, and at last, thank God, a notably expanded pursuit of racial justice and collective empathy. To be sure, this age of corona has summoned us to rise as a congregation, to stretch nimble, flexible, and tall in our service to one another. I think of our Chesed team and all its caring activities. I think of our High Holy Day Task Force, responsible for all of this blessed pre-production that has made these High Holy Days possible. I think of our fortified senior staff and the cooperation of our professional team and lay leadership, so essential to solidifying our congregation despite the many challenges and worries we face. And I think of all of you who remain the course, who hang in there with us, who stay in our fight to flourish. Thank you. Thank you all. Together, we have embodied the enduring Jewish wisdom, Kol Yisrael Arvim Ze Bazeh, the virtue of mutual responsibility. At the same time, I've heard from many of you about a sense of disconnection from a more palpable and present sense of community. I get it. I sometimes feel it too. I also understand the existential questions this COVID chaos summons. Can we make it? Can we sustain our legacy? Well, I have news for you, my friends. There is much to which we must attend as we build back better, as we renew our legacy for generations to come. For us today, it's about all hands on deck. And so I say to you in the spirit of one former Assistant Naval Secretary and Nobel Crisis Manager, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself, we can do this. Who's with me? Who will be a light in the darkness? Who will be a source of sustainability and renewal? And how can we best strengthen authentic, cohesive, and dedicated community during this pandemic and beyond? This moment of crisis, inquiry, and reflection calls for a very important tool in our life toolbox, something we call in Hebrew a tsavua. A tsavua is an ethical will, a way of capturing one's values and virtues and passing them lador vador, from generation to generation. Tsavua sounds like another relevant word for this time of year. Teshuvah, return to God, return to our best selves, return to our most virtuous path. Like teshuvah, a tsavua is a return to the past as a way of charting our course for the future or changing it altogether. The book of Deuteronomy, for example, is a tsavua. in which our prophet Moses recounts the 40-year journey he's taken with Bnei Israel, from the wilderness to the Jordan, a recollection of their past, a telling of their own story, helping them to draw meaning from their triumphs and their tragedies as a way of setting a direction toward their future and how they can make a glorious and fruitful life in the promised land. Telling such stories becomes the cornerstone of community and collective memory, and a good, honest tsavua, a revealing ethical will, becomes an important method for communal maturity. So, just as we seek our own moral and spiritual maturity during these high holy days and beyond, so do we as a congregation, as a collective force for good, do the same. As we consider this path then, let us return to our past. Let us go back to our future.
How do you think we're going to look back on this moment in history?
Well, the first and obvious response is I have no idea. But a good question deserves more than that as a response, I suspect. And I imagine that if we are to take this experience and find, as it were, the blessing that may be found in this horrifying time, it is that we will somehow reconnect ourselves to the notion of collective experience, not just personal experience. That I with you, not whether you're part of me or not. That would be such a remarkable reestablishment of some of the qualities that animate Judaism for sure, and American culture at its best, without doubt.
When I think about looking back, I think of two categories that frame my thinking, one of content and one of method. As it relates to content, and I borrow somewhat from my colleague, Rabbi Nicole Guzik in California, I hope that when we look back about how we survived these tragedies and traumas that mark these times, that we will see a real community, one that has lifted up those among us who have fallen. And I hope that we will see a true community, one that has faced bravely these frightening times. And thirdly, I hope that we will remember that we are a sincere community, one that has stayed in this fight and supported one another, even as our proverbial sky is falling.
I've been thinking a lot about, there's an author in St. Louis, her name is Sarah Kendzior. She's a scholar, an academic expert in authoritarian governments. And one of the things that she has suggested is similar, is writing down everything that you value, from how you live your daily life to what you hold dear in the world, as a way to remember as things change and possibly erode. And I remember at the beginning of COVID, a tweet going by that I cannot source of someone saying, if you've never kept a journal before, keep a journal of your daily life under COVID, because future scholars will want to know what life was like. Like that there was this ask that we create the records so that future generations can understand what this kind of blur of 6 months has been. And so I'm curious if you've done things specifically to try to remember. Do either of you keep a daily journal, a diary? Do you have a way of keeping a written calendar that you can look back on and remember how this time was spent?
I have the privilege and responsibility every week through preaching and teaching to collect my thoughts about many things. And so one thing that's clear in my writings, I wouldn't say that I journal specifically, but I write a lot. And I have a huge reservoir of writings online, which in a way serve as a diary. I don't write that diary intentionally, but I think de facto, it allows me to keep track of the curses and blessings of this moment.
For whatever reason, and I'm not necessarily sure I know why, the question recalled for me a comment attributed to a colleague of Rabbi Shalman's generation, who was also, like him, a past president of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, Rabbi Jerome Molino. And Rabbi Molino was very fond of a suggestion: can people drink deeply when an empty cup is passed around? And one of the things I've been very much aware of is that the peculiar opportunity of being restrained in my normal day-to-day is I've been reading books that I claimed I was going to read but never was going to get around to unless. That's A. B, I've been doing some teaching and been so fascinated by the whole Zoom experience, which seems to have increased people's participation. Maybe it's the hunger for connection. C, I don't like talking on the telephone, and I find myself frequently not letting people go even after we've gotten the business done because of the hunger for that additional connection in our lives. As to the specific of the question, I've had a habit for many, many years, not written, but an oral investigation, and then I'll talk about the written piece. Before I go to bed, I engage in what I call tradition calls a cheshbon hanefesh, an inventory of the soul, especially noteworthy for this time of year. And I have my rabbi cap on, metaphorically at least. I have 4 questions that I ask myself about the day every day. And if the answer to any one of those questions is no, I'm not ready for bed because I haven't done my work for the day. And so as long as I went down this route, the questions are, did I see something beautiful? Did I hear something beautiful? Did I say something beautiful? And did I do something beautiful? And there's got to be a response to those 4 questions, no matter what the circumstances of my life may be at that particular moment.
I say, nevertheless, there is a profound truth in what these stories try to tell, and what each particular adventure, perhaps, tries to portray. For example, the plague that we read about a moment ago, that of the thick darkness that was thrown upon the land of Egypt. Lo ro'u ish es ochi, ulachol b'nei Yisrael hoya oer b'moshmo son. No man, that's among the Egyptian, could see the face of his brother or his neighbor's face. And in the houses of the children of Israel, on the other hand, there was light. This difference between the darkness of Egypt and the light of Israel is a favorite theme for most of our writers. It has even come into the treasury of the English language, so that we speak very frequently of the Egyptian darkness whenever we want to characterize something as reactionary or as backward or as living in complete ignorance. While on the other hand, the light that Israel had in its habitation is more or less, again, typical of what the Jew at least thought that Israel stood for. If on the one hand, Egypt was represented darkness, unprogressiveness, on the other hand, Israel symbolized the light and what we would call forward-looking attitudes. Now, light is a favorite theme in the Bible. Perhaps all people think about light in an awesome way. It's perhaps the greatest mystery that exists. And even though moderns may attempt to explain ultimately what light is, or at least they try to tell us how it can act, it still remains one of the grandest, if not the very grandest, secrets that the universe possesses. So that when the Jew made Judaism or his own people synonymous with light, he did so not only deliberately because light meant so much, but on the other hand, he felt that in contrast to all the other peoples of earth, there was something that resembled light in the Jewish attitudes as well as in the Jewish outlook. Creation's first act, God's first act, was light. And God saw the light, and the light was good. Without light, there can be no creation. The very first step in doing anything is light, or as we might say, is understanding. Before you can achieve anything, you must somehow or other understand what you are trying to do.
There's such a truth to the power of being a light in the darkness. That whether Torah is a system of folk tales, a mythology, factual, truthful, however we want to define it, there is a powerful and enduring purpose that comes out of Rabbi Levy's voice and his words that is worth listening to in our time. Namely because Rabbi Levy, if you look at him as a text person, as Rabbi Heschel spoke of, as a person who conveys a certain purpose, meaning, light in his own life, here is a man who, along with his community, lived through some of the darkest moments of the human soul, who lived through raging storms of human experience. And through it all, he's still trying to find the light, whether it's factual or it's a function of hope and faith. For him, it's true. Remember, Rabbi Levy lived through World War I and the Spanish flu and the Great Depression and World War II and the Shoah. And here he is writing, we think towards the end of his career, perhaps in the 50s, made references to the Eisenhower administration, John Foster Dulles, the Russians, and he's talking about our Passover story, our most seminal myth, our most central story. And specifically, Rabbi Levy's talking about the ninth plague of darkness, a soulless, godless darkness, despite which our ancestors were able to shine their redeeming light through this blackness. And so here is a model. Here is a sage helping us try to figure out how we can understand our own storytelling, however ancient. Right? He's going back into the past so that he can push his community to the future with the hope and faith that they too can be a light in the darkness. And so he talks about Torah as Torah Ora, light of Torah.
I don't know if they're folk tales or reality, but this much I'm confident of. The plagues are metaphor, and there's nothing more powerful, and there's nothing more debatable, and there's nothing more confusing than metaphor. But there's an exquisite expression of that in rabbinic commentaries when it suggests that the darkness that covered Egypt was as thick as a gold dinar, a unit of currency, that it was not sandstorm or the blotting of the sun. It was rather the blindness of materialism that blinds us to the needs of each other and the willingness to reach out to the other. That's still deeply necessary, and it probably is among the most compelling reasons why we need communities to come together.
Kaddish Yomeinu. We will renew our days, Kekadem, in the spirit of those who once before did it for us, and who bequeathed to us not merely brick and stone, but that faith that said, here is Emanuel, here God is with us, here we make our stand, here we will play our part. Here we will be that people of God, that splinter of the worldwide community of Jews that is called Emanuel. And so the ancient Midrash was right. Renewal is part of life. The universe cannot exist without it. The world, the Jewish people, cannot exist without it, and we as Emanuel cannot exist without it. On the contrary, the true turning, the true understanding of this day's message, Kaddish Yomeinu Kekadem, as once they did for us, so shall we do for others. As we were given, so we shall transmit and in turn give ourselves. For it is not only they who preceded us, who had the faith. It is surely also we their children and grandchildren, we their successors, we to whom the task falls here and now. For surely the question is put to us as it is at every time and to everyone. Where are you in this world? And surely we shall say, as did those before us, in any, here we are. Amen.
Rabbi Zedek, I'll turn to you. You were one of Rabbi Shalman's successors after his second retirement. So I'm sure you knew him before you came to Emanuel.
He's among the principal reasons that I was interested in coming to Emanuel.
You hear this clip and reflect on a mentor and a colleague, and I know a dear friend. Who will be a source of sustainability and renewal as we move forward? And what are your reflections on this sermon?
An aspect of Rabbi Shalman's convictions that may not be as well known as this af al pi chen. Despite everything, we still must move forward together to make a better community, a better world, because Emanuel, God is with us. And that is, he was devoted to the notion that Chicago had a certain unique quality, that Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah, also from out of Zion shall come forth Torah, Ki Mi Chicago, also, that because of some peculiarity of Midwestern affability and conviction, that problems can be solved, that right-thinking people can come together, we will be a model for a sustainably optimistic, future-oriented community. And he kept that alive to his very end. And I'm grateful that I could hear him and say it and embody it. And I'm also grateful that I get to share it.
So when we talk about creating a new vector in Reform Judaism around things like love of Israel and the establishment of a Jewish state, that is an outward-facing, groundbreaking moment. When we think about a legacy of Jewish camping, that doesn't just happen at 5959 North Sheridan. It happens at Olin Sang Ruby, Camp Hess Kramer, Gindling Hilltop Camp, the many, many Reform camps that are in the movement, right? These are groundbreaking legacies that emanated out of 5959 North Sheridan. And so it seems to me that our legacy going forward, particularly during these uncertain times, is to do both. Do whatever we can to strengthen our sense of hope and purpose so that we can remain cohesive and true and authentic as a congregation with whom God resides, but also outward facing, making the world around us better in some unique and special way.
Rabbi Marantz, Rabbi Zedek, thank you for joining me this afternoon for this conversation. Thank you for spending this afternoon with me. It has really been a treasure.
Shana Tova U'Metuka to you both, to your families, to our entire community, a good and sweet year to one and all.
Amen. Selah.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו ושמו אחד.
The time may be distant and the outcome uncertain. For how could suffering endemic to the human condition ever come to an end? Cessation of desire, relinquishing attachment, diminished expectations. All these might ease the pain of being alive. Or decide instead that you'll continue to dream, hope, remain fiercely attached to bringing a better day, even if the outcome's uncertain and the time is very distant.
As we read the following names for Kaddish, please share additional names to the chat.
Franklin X, George Bernstein, Maurice Bernstein, Daisy Borer Brash, Harris Bush, Raymond Chait, Lester Edinger, Harry Gilbert, Cynthia Goldstein, Joseph Goodman, Gussie Jacobson, Betty Kaplan, Lucille Carton, Miriam Kleinberg, Lena Lehman, Jack Malavani,
Dwight D. Manis, Nancy Martin, Morris Millhouse, Kate Minkus, David Morris, Emil J. Pollock, Mendel Posen, Edward Price, David M. Riff, Lola Salinas, Hartley M. Sangerman, Estelle Schaefer, Diane Schatz, Ruth Slutsky, Stephen Snyderman, Captain Jerome Solomon, MC,
Ella P. Sommerfeld, Edith Wallach, James Gillis Whitney, Fred Wadaka, and in recent days, Noreen Alpert, Sharon Vadabancourt, Tanya Berman Barliant, Betty Cohen, Alan Tellisman.
We rise in body and or spirit and or as is your custom for the Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye decho beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv ve'emru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'meru amen. Yehe shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'meru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'meru. Amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say, Amen.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you were, return to what you are, return to where you were born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you were born and reborn again. Ooh.